Chancellor Mertz of Germany, who is a very strong person and a very strong leader and very highly respected in Germany. And he's my friend, and it's an honor to have him as my friend. Thank you very much. Very good. You look great with your tan. Where did you get that tan? I want to get a tan like that.
This is my video update on this Tuesday afternoon, August the 19th, coming to you from Limassol, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. And we are going to discuss the big meeting that took place at the White House yesterday between Trump and Alinsky, and between Trump and 7 European leaders. Maloney, Vandermath, Macron, Mertz, Stube, Keir Starmer showed up, and I know I'm missing someone, and Mark Rutte, the CEO of NATO. Those were the 7 European leaders who met with Trump. But first we got the meeting between Trump and Alinsky. And Zelensky was very agreeable. That's what Zelensky was. He was coached very well by the Europeans to be very, very friendly, very non-combative, and just agree to everything Trump says. And also, Zelensky, a lot of thank yous. That is what they coached Zelensky to say, and that is what the actor did. He said yes often, and he said thank you a whole lot. And actually, the Washington Post, they tracked the amount of times that Zelensky said thank you or yes, how many times he said yes. And I believe the Washington Post counted 11 times during the meeting that was public, the amount of times that Zelensky said yes, because they had a public meeting. They took some questions from the media, and then they went behind closed doors. So Zelensky's answer to everything was yes and thank you. Yes, 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 and thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trump. Thank you, Mr. Media person. Thank you, Mr. Journalist. Thank you, Mrs. Journalist. Thank you, America. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Podolyak, how am I doing? You're doing really, really well, Mr. President. Thank you, Podolyak. I can always count on you to support me, Podolyak. You're a good friend. So yeah, that was Zelensky. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And he got dressed up. He got dressed up. Not quite a suit and tie, not a suit and tie, but he was almost there. He was almost there. Some publications are saying that Zelensky chose an outfit that would please Trump, but was also in line with his military pledge. He was actually wearing an outfit that was a military style of outfit, because his promise, his pledge to the people of Ukraine is that he will wear a military outfit in order to be close to the people. He will not wear a suit and tie, because he wants to convey to the people of Ukraine that there's a war going on, and he wants to be very close to the people of Ukraine. What's up, my friend? How you doing on this hot Limassol day? Did you catch the Alinsky-Trump meeting? No? Yeah, you had better things to do. The Limassol cat had better things to do. So, yeah, he was almost at a suit and a tie. He didn't wear the tie. He wore a black dress shirt. He wore like a black jacket, and he was almost there. He was almost at a suit and tie, because on the Duran, we've said that the minute Alinsky wears a tie, a suit and tie, that's how you know the war is over. So the fact that he was almost at a suit and tie, maybe that means something. Trump, he was fine with it. He was fine with it. Alinsky got out of the car. Trump greeted him, and Trump was like, hey, you got dressed up. And Zelensky was like, yeah, I told you I would get dressed up, Mr. Trump. Yeah. So that was Zelensky, to be honest. That was the meeting between Zelensky and Trump. Was there any pushback from Trump with regards to Zelensky's demands? Let's see. Trump told Zelensky no NATO. So he said there's going to be no NATO for Ukraine. Trump actually brought up a good point, which is that Ukraine for NATO has been a red line, has been off limits since even before Zelensky, definitely before Zelensky, even before Putin. That was Trump's point that he made to Zelensky. Ukraine and NATO in the past was never talked about, was never going to happen, and it's not going to happen now. And it's been off the table for many years, and so we're not even going to discuss NATO for Ukraine. So that was Trump's point with NATO, and Trump was saying all of this in a very friendly way. Trump was not assertive. He was not to the point. He was very friendly. He joked around a lot, and he at times he also seemed very agreeable with the positions of Ukraine and of the Europeans. And that's kind of landed him into a bit of trouble, and I'll get to that later on in the video, especially with the security guarantees. The fact that he tried to please the Europeans without going back on what he discussed with Putin in Alaska kind of landed him in some hot water. The White House, it appears that the White House had to walk back, or told Trump to walk back some of the statements that he made, especially with regards to security guarantees. Anyway, he told Alinsky no NATO. When asked about a ceasefire, unconditional ceasefire, Trump said, "Look, I've made many deals without a ceasefire, so we don't need a ceasefire." So he stuck to that as well. So he stuck to no NATO. He stuck to no ceasefire. And when the topic of elections came up and why Zelensky does not hold elections, I believe this was asked by a reporter, and Zelensky said, "Look, now we have martial law, and we are at war, and in our constitution it says we have martial law, we can't hold elections, I stay president." And right, Podolyak? That's right, Mr. President. And the response from Trump was actually a clever response. He said, "Oh, okay. So you're telling me that if the United States is at war and we declare martial law, then we don't have to have elections, and I can stay as president." and obviously we get the point that Trump is trying to make. Actually, he's taking a jab at the mainstream media. He's kind of trolling the mainstream media because they go on and on about how Trump is going to seek a third term, and he's going to cancel elections because he's a dictator. So basically, he was highlighting the hypocrisy in that the media is constantly going on and on about him canceling elections and going for a third term, or trying to get to a third term, while at the same time they say nothing about the fact that Zelensky has canceled elections and he's the president without being democratically voted in. And so he was highlighting the hypocrisy there, but he was also making a point to Zelensky. And I don't know if the point came across to Zelensky and those that were in attendance, but he was basically telling Zelensky, you got to hold elections. He probably should have been more direct. I think that was the big problem that Trump had at this event. He wasn't direct. He was very nice, very friendly. He wanted to please everyone in attendance, but he also could have been stronger and he could have been more direct. For example, he could have made the joke about elections, and then he could have told Zelensky, all jokes aside, you need to hold elections. That's what he could have told Zelensky. Don't give me any of this martial law bullcrap. I don't want to hear it. We know that this is not accurate. You're conducting a war, but you can't hold elections. Come on, man. hold elections. He could have said something like that to Alinsky, to just be more direct, but he didn't. So I don't know if the message came across to the Green Goblin. Anyway, Alinsky brought a map. He actually brought a map to this meeting, and according to the Ukraine side, they brought the map in order to present the real situation on the front lines. I don't know what they're talking about as far as the real situation, but the real situation is that Russia is winning, and that Ukraine is losing very bad in this war of attrition. Right? That is what this is about. It is a war of attrition in which Ukraine is losing really, really bad weapons and soldiers. But Alinsky is probably, or was probably, bringing the map in order to focus on territorial gains and try to present the argument that Russia has not made significant territorial gains. I'm sure that Putin in Alaska and his team, they told the Trump administration, we're not so concerned about territorial gains at the moment. What we're doing is we are fighting a war of attrition. Do you understand that? And I think that the Trump administration in Alaska finally understood that. So that was Zelensky and Trump. And then Trump met with the Europeans. They all sat around this big table. Trump in the center, the head of the table. The Europeans sitting around him. And part of this meeting was public. So there were no questions from the journalists. At least I don't think the journalists were giving any questions to the European leaders with Trump there. But they all made their statements at this sit down, and then they went behind closed doors and discussed things further. But the Europeans, they definitely had an agenda, and each leader played their part. They all had a script, and they would all focus on one certain point or one certain demand that they wanted to make of Trump and the United States. For example, BlackRock Mertz was going to focus on an unconditional ceasefire. So you see, that's my point. Trump, meeting with Zelensky, he said no ceasefire. He made that point very clear. There will be no unconditional ceasefire. An hour later, you have BlackRock Mertz sitting next to Trump at this table, talking about how there has to absolutely be an unconditional ceasefire. It's like, Trump should have told Mertz at that moment. He should have said, look, Mr. BlackRock Mertz, what did I tell Zelensky an hour ago? And then BlackRock Mertz could have said, you told Zelensky no ceasefire? And Trump could have said, yeah, that's what I told him. Were you not listening? That's what he should have said to Mertz. Were you not listening, man? I said no ceasefire. Why are you sitting at the table talking about a ceasefire? He could have said that. He could have been a bit tougher, shown a bit more strength, a bit more backbone, but he didn't. He wanted to get along with the Europeans, to buddy around with them, to please them. So anyway, Mertz's role was to talk about an unconditional ceasefire. Macron's role was to talk about militarization, building a big Ukraine military, and under no circumstances are we to agree to a demilitarized Ukraine. Also Macron was there to try and push for a four-way meeting between the Europeans, Russia, the United States, and Ukraine, but that was shot down right away. There was no talk about a four-way meeting, but his main goal, his main task, Macron, was to talk about militarizing Ukraine. Mark Rutte, NATO, pretty much the same thing, but in the form of NATO getting the money, and NATO militarizing Ukraine, because he's the CEO of NATO, so he's going to look after NATO's bottom line. Ursula was there to talk about security guarantees. So that was her task, talk about security guarantees. She was also there to push the Melania letter, right? So she asked Trump about the children in reference to Melania's letter. And Trump wasn't listening to Ursula. It was obvious. He did not listen to one word she said. So Ursula's talking to him about the children and what are we going to do? And Trump's response to Ursula was, yeah, we had a good meeting in Scotland, the United States and the EU, which showed that Trump didn't listen to one word that Ursula was saying, man. Anyway, Ursula was mostly there to talk about security guarantees, providing really, really solid security guarantees for Ukraine. And Meloni was there to talk about Article 5. We have to give Ukraine some sort of Article 5 protection. That was Meloni. Meloni was also there to try and score a date with Elon Musk, right? But after the meeting, that was what Meloni was there for. So that was the meeting with Trump and the Europeans, and there were 2 points that came out of this meeting that a lot of people are talking about. That from the European side of things, they claim that they actually influenced Trump. When you dig a bit deeper into what was said and what's going on, it looks like the Europeans did not manage to bring Trump on side. But the 2 points that a lot of people are talking about, and I guess you could say are confused about, because we don't really know what the resolution to these topics was from the discussions between Trump and the Europeans, has to do with security guarantees and some sort of bilateral meeting between Putin and Alinsky, and then a trilateral meeting between Putin, Alinsky, and Trump. So let's discuss these 2 topics. And by the way, in the middle of all of this, as Trump is meeting with the Europeans, he decides to call Putin, right? He decides to call the Russian president. And he wanted to call the Russian president with regards to setting up a meeting with Zelensky, Putin and Alinsky, which was very odd. I don't think Trump should have done that, to be quite honest. I'm sure that Russia and the United States, they agreed that Trump would fill in Putin after everything was said and done and the meetings were over as to what was discussed. I think that's the right way to go about things. That's proper protocol. But to stop the meeting in the middle of your discussions and call Putin was very unorthodox, very bizarre. But the reason that Trump did is that he wanted to try and get Putin right there on the spot with everyone listening, with everyone there, to try and get him to commit to a meeting with Zelensky. And Putin was having none of that. If I was on the other end of that phone call, I would just tell Trump, bro, why are you calling me now, man? Are you finished with the meeting of your vassals? I would have said, are you done talking to your vassals? And Trump would have said, no, I'm not done. They're actually here in the room with me. And I would have been like, bro, finish your meeting and then call me. Don't call me now. Finish your meeting, man. Come on. Yeah, I don't even understand why Trump. I mean, I understand why Trump allowed the vassals to chaperone Alinsky to D.C. I mean, they really didn't move the needle as far as any type of resolution with Project Ukraine. I mean, they were there specifically to try and sabotage it. Their goal is to sabotage a peace deal. But I would have said, nah, Alinsky, don't bring these people to the U.S. Let's just have it be me and you, so maybe we can make some headway. You know, if it's just me and just you, maybe we can get somewhere with these negotiations, with these talks. But he allowed all of these European vassals to show up. And I mean, at the end of the day, what are they going to really what are they going to add to the discussions outside of trying to sabotage them? But from Trump's point of view, I understand that it was probably irresistible to turn away leaders from 7 countries to come and see you at the White House and to sit around a table with you at the head of the table, dictating the agenda and the terms, and 7 flags behind you. I mean, from a media optics point of view, Trump was on board with this. But when it comes to substance, it was just a waste of time inviting these guys to the White House. That's just my opinion. So let's talk about this this alleged meeting between Alinsky and Putin, and then Trump, Alinsky, and Putin. So Trump, he said that the plan going forward is for Putin to meet with Zelensky. They don't have a location just yet, though the Europeans were definitely, man, it's windy. Oh my God. The Europeans were hinting at making it at some European city or some EU location, which is ridiculous. That's never going to happen. But Trump said, first, we're going to have Putin and Alinsky, and that's at one location. And then at a different day, a different time, a different location, it will be a meeting between myself, Putin, and Alinsky. So that's the plan that Trump floated out there. And that's the plan that allegedly he pitched to Putin, as he called him. Now, the media ran with this. Alinsky ran with this. Alinsky said, yes, Putin. Actually, Alinsky even made it out as if Putin wants to meet with Trump. Putin is calling for Putin wants to meet with Zelensky. Putin is calling for the bilateral meeting with Ukraine. That's how Zelensky positioned this. Let's get into the shade. And the media ran with this, right? The media was saying that Trump scored a bilateral meeting between Putin and Zelensky, and then a trilateral meeting with all 3 leaders, and they ran away with this narrative, and they just started to talk up this narrative. And then you get to the statement from Ushakov and the Kremlin, and I'm going to read you what Ushakov said, and I quote, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump spoke in favor of continuing direct talks between the delegations of Russia and Ukraine. In this regard, the parties discussed the idea of considering the possibility of increasing the level of both countries' delegations involved in the direct talks. The parties discussed the idea of considering the possibility of increasing the level of both countries' delegations involved in direct talks. Nowhere in Ushakov's statement or the Kremlin statement did they say, we agree to direct bilateral meetings with the president of Russia and Zelensky. Nowhere in the statements from the Kremlin. Now, maybe in the future, maybe this afternoon, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe the Kremlin changes its mind. I doubt it, but it's possible. But at this moment, what the Kremlin is saying is, yeah, we're okay with increasing the level of people involved in direct talks, or we will consider the possibility. They're not even saying, yes, we'll do it. They're saying we're positive to it. We'll consider the possibility of increasing the level of the country's delegations. And so if there were to be some sort of a scenario, and that's the word that I will use, if there is going to be some sort of a scenario in the future where Putin and Alinsky are in the same room, then if you go to the live stream that we recorded today, that we had today on the Duran, me and Alexander nails it when you drill down to this statement from Ushakov. What Ushakov is saying is that there will not be direct talks between Putin and Alinsky. Maybe, possibly, Putin will be a chief negotiator at a certain time, a certain date, a certain location. Putin will head up the Russian delegation, and Zelensky, if he wants to, not up to us, but if Zelensky wants to head up the Ukrainian delegation, then be my guest. Russia has never said that they are against Zelensky heading up a negotiation team. They've actually said that he's welcome. Actually, Peskov has said many times that if Zelensky wants to head up the negotiation team for Ukraine in Istanbul, go ahead. We have no problem with it. So that's what Alexander explained during the live stream, and I think he has it exactly right when you read very carefully what Ushakov said, because for Russia, for the president of Russia to agree to an official meeting with Zelensky would basically mean that Russia recognizes Zelensky as the legitimate president, and that completely blows up Russia's legal argument that they've been making for the past year and a half, which is that Zelensky is not the democratically elected president of Ukraine, if you go by the Ukrainian constitution as studied by Russian lawyers. So Putin meeting Alinsky in his official capacity as president of the Russian Federation in a bilateral meeting with Zelensky, leader of Russia, with the leader of Ukraine, would be a recognition of Zelensky's legitimacy, and that would be a major concession from Russia and a major win for Ukraine, and Russia is not falling into that trap. That statement from the Kremlin was very, very carefully worded in order to avoid the trap of having a bilateral meeting, an official bilateral meeting between Putin and Alinsky. So that was the discussion with the bilateral and possibly a trilateral meeting that could take place in the future. And the next topic that a lot of people are discussing and that there isn't much clarity on is the topic of security guarantees. Now, in his meeting with Zelensky, Trump made it out as if the United States would be providing security guarantees to Ukraine. He actually said that there are going to be very strong security guarantees that will be provided to Ukraine. He even hinted at some sort of U.S. troop deployment or some sort of U.S. troop involvement. He did say that as he was meeting with Zelensky. He said that he wants to give Ukraine good protection, but he also said that Ukraine cannot enter NATO. So he actually said that. He said that the United States is on board with security guarantees, with good security guarantees. He made it out as if the United States will be providing security guarantees. He also said that the Europeans will also be providing security guarantees. And he did hint at some sort of U.S. troop deployment. He didn't get into any of the details of exactly what that entails, but he did throw it out there. And so the Europeans and the media and the collective West media They absolutely latched on to this. And they made it out as if Trump is now on board with some sort of NATO style Article 5 type of security guarantees for Ukraine. In other words, they made it out as if Trump is now back aligned with NATO and the Europeans. The title from Politico says the transatlantic alliance holds as Trump warms to security guarantees for Kiev. The Kremlin is unsettled by U.S. president's increasingly serious stance on offering post-war defense commitments to Ukraine. And Macron also made a statement saying that that Trump is aligned with the Europeans when it comes to very strong security guarantees for Ukraine, the U.S. being a part of these security guarantees. That was what Trump said. That's what he said as he was meeting with Zelensky. Once again, instead of taking a firm position and saying, no, the United States will not take part in any security guarantees. We're going to discuss these later at a later date. We'll discuss security guarantees later because it's very complicated. So let's not get into this now, but the United States will not have boots on the ground. We will not be part of any security guarantee apparatus or anything like that. Trump, once again, he has this tendency to want to please the Europeans, right? And so he started to talk about strong security guarantees for Ukraine, and we're going to be a part of these security guarantees, and maybe even U.S. troops will be a part of these security guarantees. Don't worry, we will provide strong security guarantees. We'll be involved in the security of Ukraine. He shouldn't have said that. He should have said, this is complicated. This is going to need a lot of negotiations. Russia has given us their thoughts and their position when it comes to security guarantees, and let's discuss this at a later time. But he didn't say that. And so the Europeans, the media, they grabbed onto this and they say, we've got Trump on side now when it comes to security guarantees. And the Kremlin, they actually posted a statement before the meeting even took place where they said they will not accept any NATO troop presence in Ukraine. The foreign ministry actually posted this statement, and they said, we will not accept any NATO collective West troops in Ukraine. That's just not going to happen. So even the foreign ministry, even the Kremlin, before the meeting even started in DC, they said that this whole talk about collective West, NATO, European security guarantees is a non-starter. So Trump should have known this before he started to talk about security guarantees. And his White House, it looks like his White House understood that a mistake had been made. And Trump posted on Truth Social, this is what he posted, because a lot of people were talking about security guarantees and how the U.S. has been won over to the European Ukraine side of things, and that the U.S. is going to get involved in Project Ukraine. Trump posted on Truth Social, he said, I had a very good meeting with distinguished guests, President Alinsky of Ukraine, Macron, Stub, Rutte, etc., which ended in a further meeting in the Oval Office. During the meeting, we discussed security guarantees for Ukraine, which guarantees would be provided by the various European countries with a coordination with the United States of America. Everyone is very happy about the possibility of peace for Russia, Ukraine. And then he goes on and on. But the important part of this Truth Social post is where Trump says that the security guarantees will be provided by various European countries, which Russia will not go for. But anyway, he says various European countries with a coordination with the United States of America. So he walked everything back. what was discussed at the meeting, what was said at the meeting, or at least what was said in public as reporters were in the room, everything got walked back. And now the line is that the United States will coordinate security guarantees for Ukraine with European countries possibly providing those security guarantees, which will get shot down by Russia. Russia will not have a problem with US coordination, right? Whatever that even means. But they're not going to allow European countries to provide security guarantees. They're not going to allow that to happen. NATO, European countries, it's not going to happen. But you can see how Trump walked the whole thing back in this Truth Social post. So, I guess the basic outcome to the meeting is that we really didn't get much of anything, to be quite honest. We really didn't make much headway. Maybe, possibly, we're definitely going to get some future meetings. Possibly we may see a meeting in the future with a delegation headed up by Putin and a delegation headed up by Zelensky. And then maybe after that, we get another Russia-US meeting. And I think that was the big takeaway from everything that happened yesterday. The war continues, but we are one step closer to a resolution. By the way, Lavrov invited Trump to Russia today. No coincidence there, the invitation from Lavrov. And Lavrov also said that any type of deal that is agreed on will have to take Russia's interest into consideration, and will have to protect the Russian language, Russian speakers, the Russian culture, religion, the rights of the ethnic Russians in a post-war Ukraine, whatever that is. So one thing that Alinsky and the Europeans tried to do when they met with Trump is they tried to, I guess you could say they tried to bribe him. Is that a correct word? I hope I'm using the right word. It seems like they tried to bribe him. I don't know, but maybe bribe is a strong word, but I can't think of another word to describe what the Financial Times is reporting. Ukraine offers $100 billion weapons deal to Trump to win security guarantees. I mean, $100 billion that Ukraine definitely does not have. We know that. Europe doesn't have $100 billion. They'll have to go into debt and borrow that $100 billion, aka Euro bonds, right? But $100 billion from the pocket of Europe, of the European Union, given to the United States so that they can purchase weapons that the United States doesn't have. We already know that the waiting list for Patriot air defense systems is 7 years. But that will win over U.S. security guarantees. In other words, that will place the U.S. military in Ukraine. We'll give you $100 billion if the U.S. military comes into Ukraine, right? Enters Ukraine and provides us security. I don't have another word to describe this offer. So there it is, according to the Financial Times. Money that Ukraine doesn't have, money that the European Union doesn't have and will have to go into debt in order to come up with this money to purchase weapons that the United States doesn't have, right? But here's $100 billion. Oh, man. There was a hot mic moment as well during this event where Trump said, I don't know who he was talking to, but the hot mic got Trump saying, and I quote, "I think he wants to make a deal for me. Do you understand? As crazy as it sounds." So that was probably the most honest thing said at this event, right? The most true thing said at this event, because when you break it down, and Alexander explained this in our live stream, Trump is kind of right. Putin, if there's one president in his opinion, that he thinks he can actually talk to and actually make a deal with, it's Trump. It wasn't going to be Obama, definitely not Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son. So Trump is Putin's best shot at getting a potential deal with. So it's not so far off what Trump said during this hot mic, right? Anyway, that was an interesting hot mic moment. And I think that's everything. That is everything. Should we do some clown worlds? By the way, Trump is saying that he'll sign an order banning mail-in ballots, voting machines ahead of the 2026 midterms. In other words, he is taking Putin's advice, right? That's what Putin told him in Alaska. Mail-in ballots and all of that stuff, forget about it. So it looks like Trump listened to Putin. And he's saying, okay, I gotta be done with these mail-in ballots. They don't work. So that was an interesting announcement from Trump. All right, let's do some clown worlds, and we can wrap this this video up. So there was a photo that was circulating yesterday of the European. Let's walk across. Of the European leaders sitting outside of, I guess, the Oval Office, and they were all lined up sitting outside the Oval Office, and that was a fake photo. That was an AI-generated photo. You can tell because if you look at Macron, or who's supposed to be Macron, it doesn't even quite look like Macron, but Macron has like 4 legs or 3 legs. If you look very, very closely, you can see an extra leg or 2 with Macron. So that was AI generated. But another photo came out, which I believe is real, is authentic. At least that's the way it looks. So I'm going to go with the fact that, or at least the assumption, that this is indeed a real photo. And it's even more damning than the AI-generated photo of the European leaders sitting in a row outside of the Oval Office, because in this photo, you have U.S. President Trump sitting behind his desk, and you have the European leaders sitting in chairs in front of Trump's desk, like a principal speaking to little school children, right? That's what this photo looks like. Johnny Miller on X says, it's crazy that a fake photo of EU leaders bowing to Trump went viral, but then the real one turned out to be even worse. Yeah, you can even see the map of Ukraine there that Zelensky brought with him in the background. Yeah, this photo is much worse than the AI-generated photo. Vassals. Vassals, man. So Alexander Stubb, the leader of Finland, he made a fool of himself at this meeting. He was really kissing up to Trump. Man, the Europeans were kissing up to Trump in a big, big way. Zelensky was saying yes and thank you constantly, right? Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. The European leaders, man, were they kissing up. They were kissing up to Trump big time. As they were making demands, panicking and making demands of Trump in the United States, they made sure to make the demands of the United States, but then to also kiss up to Trump, right? That was their strategy. Let's make our demands, but make sure you make your demands with a nice big kiss up to the U.S. president. So Alexander Stubb, he talked about how Finland, we have experience with Russia. This is what Stubb said. We have experience with Russia. We're a small country, but we share an 800-mile border with Russia and lived through the Winter War. We found a solution in 1944, and we'll find one in 2025 to end Russia's aggression and secure a just peace. Not the brightest of statements for Stubb to make. I don't think you want to go to that part of history if you're a Stubb. I don't think you want to reference that history if you're Stubb. Man, that was not the smartest of comments from the leader of Finland. And finally, is this real? Putin may have ties to Russia. I saw this image from CNN, but I don't know, is this real or is this AI generated? Putin may have ties to Russia, I don't know. I don't know where this image comes from, but I saw it floating around social media. Finally, we go to Boris Johnson, the man who sabotaged the 2022 Istanbul peace talks. That Boris Johnson. What is he doing as these meetings are taking place in DC? Boris Johnson is holidaying in Greece. That's right, Boris Johnson is in Greece. A whole lot of photos of Boris Johnson hanging out on the beaches of Greece, living his best life, not a care in the world, even though he is the person who many people believe sabotaged a possible peace agreement, definitely a peace agreement. Even Ukraine agreed to the first Istanbul talks, the first Istanbul negotiations. He came in to Kiev, flew into Kiev, sabotaged it, and well, the rest is history. Now Boris Johnson is hanging out on the beaches of Greece, having a good old time, that Boris Johnson, huh? No feelings of guilt or anything from Boris Johnson. Anyway, that is the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble and Telegram and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like what I was wearing in this video update. There is a link in the description box down below. Take care.